Welcome to the Sideline. I'm Andy Katz. Well, this is going to be a home for a lot of original content in college sports and beyond. Now, of course, you're going to get a lot of that similar content that I produce for NCAA platforms, for Big Ten Network, and other places. But I needed a home for a lot of those interviews with the newsmakers in this space. So where are you going to find it? Right here at the Sideline. Let's get to it. And welcome, everyone, to a preseason chat. I'm Andy Katz, pleased to be joined by Tyler Lundblade from Belmont. And if you don't know Tyler, you should, because he's arguably one of the, if not the best three-point shooter in the country. And guess what? He stayed in this era where everyone's running around to different schools and probably could have. He stayed. So let's got a lot to unpack here, Tyler. Let's first deal with that. What is it about Belmont that you wanted to stay?
Yeah, I think for me, my journey in college basketball has been pretty unique. And for me, it was just the first time I've really had stability in my career. And, I've been at high majors, and now probably I had some attention again from high majors, but you just don't know like what's on the other side of that door. You see it every year, guys go up a level or jump back up from mid-major to high major, and it works out for about half of them, and for the other half it doesn't work out. And I think for me, just where I'm at, and hopefully making that jump this year to set myself up to play professionally. You don't have to be at that, you don't have to be high major anymore. You just, if you're good enough, they'll find you. And Belmont took a risk on me, letting me come late last year as a walk-on, after missing all summer workouts. And I'm loyal to that. Those guys, took a real chance on me, and it's something I'm grateful for. And I love it here too. Nashville's incredible. The program's great. And there's just, you can't put a price tag on, joy, and you just don't know, what's on the other side of that jump to another school. And, one thing I really appreciate is like the staff that recruited me here is the staff I play for. And it's authentic and it's real. And it's just not something I wanted to trade.
Well, let's educate everyone here. Walk on at SMU, walk on at TCU, walk on at Belmont. So you're in the DFW area there, then you come to Nashville. So each step, you were betting on yourself. No one was giving it to you. What transpired, do you think, from each stop that put you in a position to make these teams essentially?
Yeah, I think, you know, going back to high school, SMU had recruited me the whole time, and, they were, their pitch was like, look, you're a scholarship level player. We just already took two high school guards. Like, we're going to try to find, a transfer big or something. And, that never happened. And so when I was there, I played well. They put me on scholarship. And then, obviously Coach Shank retired. And then I made the jump to TCU and was on scholarship there for 2 years. And, things kind of ended sourly, and scholarship got pulled late. And so, especially during my time at TCU, I look back at that first team I was on, and we had, four or five guys from that team touch the NBA. And you're rubbing shoulders with those guys every single day. And, playing well in practice, you build up a lot of confidence. And I knew that, when I left TCU, I just needed an opportunity somewhere to go show it. And Belmont, turned out to be the right place for me. And, I came in knowing like, maybe I hadn't proved it in a game sense, but I knew what I had done every day in practice, and, knew the jumps I had made over the last couple of years. And, that gave me a lot of confidence knowing that, whenever I get out there, I'll be able to show it.
So first of all, let's be clear. You can get to the NBA from Belmont. People have in the past. So, it doesn't matter. And Belmont's got an unbelievable program. Obviously, Rick Byrd is a Hall of Famer, unbelievable deal there. And now you got Coach Alexander. And so things have gone so well and in a great city in Nashville. So that's a moot point. I mean, that. I'm just saying that to just generally that people can get to the NBA from Big 12, OVC now, MVC with Belmont. So that's let's put that on the side. Let's get to your shooting. You entered last year, with 8 career points.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I just want let that marinate for a minute. For a minute. 8 career points. You then make 104 threes and lead the nation in 3 point field goal percentage. I don't know where that, who else we could say has had a 180 like that or an opportunity like that. How did this happen?
I think it's just, I mean, it's years of compounding work, and my faith is a huge part of my life. And I think it's just, all that time waiting and chasing and, constantly working. You know, Especially being a guy that didn't have the opportunity at my previous schools to go out there and show it. I think that played a huge role in me working harder and harder and harder. And then, I just honestly feel like when I got here, the Lord just kind of opened the floodgates and, was able to let it loose. And it's the right place, the right coach, the right staff, the right style of play, the right teammates. But yeah, it's incredible. If you would have told me last year for me, I just wanted the opportunity to play. And I didn't know what it would look like. Obviously I was confident in myself. But if you would have told me that I would you know, be the number one shooter in the country, break a school record, hit over 100 threes. I don't know if I would have believed you, honestly. And so it's just been the last year was incredible. And so I think you're a lot more grateful for it, especially with the path that I've taken. If I would have immediately had success or been a highly touted recruit in high school, I don't know, if that appreciation level would be as high as it is now. And that's a lot, again, that's a lot of the reason why I stayed is because I know what I have here, and I know what I haven't had in the past. And so, like I said, it's not something I want to trade. And so yeah, it's been, remarkable. I joked with my dad, I probably had to have had you know, the highest jump in production year from one year to the next, like ever in college basketball, which is pretty funny to think about. But yeah, it's just awesome.
And I want everyone to understand the number. The number is 48%, uh, which is pretty remarkable on threes. So 48% shooter, 104, led the country in that percentage. Walk me through your routine, especially in the off season. What does Tyler Lundblade's 3 point shooting routine look like?
I couldn't tell you, honestly. It's a lot of work, but I don't really have a set routine. I'm gonna get, probably in the off season, I'm probably making somewhere around 350 to 400 shots a day, and I think is
Whoa, making or attempting?
making,
How many do
which
you
is,
think you attempt?
I mean, in my workouts, I'm probably shooting above 80%, so somewhere between 400 to 500, depending on the day. But I
And
think
is it, I just want to get the visual here. Is it working around the arc? What are we doing here?
no, it's a lot of when I was younger, it was just shooting spot shots and repetition, repetition. But as I've gotten older and I've definitely progressed as a shooter, I don't really resort to shooting a lot of spot shots unless it's like post practice or something. But when I'm in the off season, I'm working with our player development guy. It's a lot of everything's off the move, off the bounce, contested, trying to make everything as hard as I can. And I'm gonna get hundreds of different shots in games, with tons of different footworks, and so I'm working on different stuff every day. And I think that's part of what's helped me make a jump in my shooting the last couple of years is not doing the same thing every day, and trying to make workouts pretty unpredictable. Try to challenge myself as much as I can. So if I wouldn't say I have like a set routine. I'll probably train at the same time every day and train the same amount of times, but every workout's going to be different.
And that's a great point. I mean, obviously, uh, you can't mimic the exact shot you're going to get in a game, who's guarding you, how is the pass, how much time's left on the shot clock. All
Mhm.
these things happen in real time. That's hard to mimic in practice. So I love that you're saying that you can't just sit out there and say, okay, I'm going to get 100 from this corner, 100 from the top of the key, 100 from over here, to make sure that you get the requisite work in. But you can't just be a specialist. Where else in your game do you think you've shown improvement and need to improve this season?
Yeah, I think for me, obviously my shot is my biggest strength, and that's one thing Coach Alexander has been big on me is to continue to make my biggest strength my biggest strength, because that's going to open everything else up for me. And with teams, they're going to chase me over the top of everything. They're going to run me off the line, and so I think being better of those, one dribble kick, one dribble get to the paint, make plays from there. That's where, I can make a big jump, and I believe I have made a big improvement moving into this season. And then, this year I'm in a spot where I'm probably going to be, at the top of a scouting report and maybe not number two or number three. So, we're going to see early in the year a lot of the different coverages I'm going to get, but people are going to top lock me. They're going to deny me. So continuing to get better at moving off the ball and being comfortable being just a cutter at times and opening stuff up for other guys and making plays even when I'm off the ball because my shot making is going to bring a lot of gravity to defenses, and so using that to open up the floor for other guys and help the offense flow more.
So obviously, over the last decade or so, the logo three, Steph Curry, sort of. I mean, we can go way back. I mean, in my era with, watching Reggie Miller and those guys, obviously making big time shots and threes and all that. I remember all that in the '90s. But Steph obviously brought it further out. On the women's game, Caitlin Clark obviously has done the same. Where are you in terms of your range and ability to hit those kind of logo threes if you need to?
Yeah, I think I'm pretty comfortable. It's something I work on all the time. I think, even if you don't shoot them in game, shooting deep threes really works on your mechanics. Like that's something I've taken from Damian Lillard and his training is he shoots a lot of deep ones. And obviously he's elite at shooting deep threes. But if you're going to be accurate from, 30 feet, it's going to make you a lot more accurate from 24. But I feel pretty comfortable, shooting within the volleyball line. It's not something I want to rely on. I think it's probably not the best shot every time down the floor if I'm going to take a volleyball three when I could take one at the line. But I'm not uncomfortable shooting beyond the NBA line.
All right, so uh, athleticism is in the fam. Your brother Brad, also a walk on at Oklahoma State, made it to the NFL. This was not your only sport, baseball, a previous love, maybe continues to be. What was it like at home in terms of having, you know, this talent under one roof, various sports, to keep you guys sort of diversified in your interests athletically?
I think it's probably not what a typical like sport family would be. You think of like the Watt brothers or something like that, where they're just always, pushing each other. Whereas like with my parents, they were whatever your passion was, they just wanted us to chase our dreams. And so for me and my brother, it was athletics. For my sister, it was dance. And, they never pushed us to they weren't the overzealous AAU parent you see all the time. Um, but when we wanted the help and we were, truly bought into something, they poured into our dream and they helped us and they coached us along the way. But I think for me, more of my brother was just more of an inspiration, and he was 6 years older than me, so we really never like trained together. But just seeing him, take the walk-on path, that gave me a lot of inspiration. And my dad played in college, so he gave me a lot of advice. And he was my rebounder growing up, and worked for hours and hours on end with me on my shot. And so, it wasn't like we were family workout at 8 a.m., we're all together. It wasn't like that. But, I think my parents did a really good job of, whatever we were, passionate about that they got behind and supported us.
So, I mean, your brother was he was on the line,
Hmm.
ends up, making the NFL, has since retired, correct?
Yeah.
Uh, but strength is a big thing.
Hmm.
Uh, how much now, as a former athlete, a professional, and that's obviously something you got to continue to get stronger. Like, how has that, if at all, helped you in terms of any kind of mentorship in the strength training world?
Yeah, so actually I think that's probably the biggest thing we bonded on. When I was getting into like middle school, like my brother wrote my lifting programs for me, and strength and conditioning is a huge passion of mine. And I think honestly that, in high school, obviously I made jumps in my skill development, but I think the strength training and performance training is probably, helped my game the most, getting stronger with the ball and being able to push my shot further and further back and, becoming a better athlete. Because I really, I'm not the best athlete now, but I really wasn't a good athlete at all growing up. And so my brother and I, so we still, that's, probably 40% of our conversations we have now is about training. And he's training for a marathon now, and so we're talking about running and we talk about lifting all the time. And now I'm writing my dad's strength and conditioning programs for him training back home. So yeah, that's been a huge bond for us. And I think, with him in the football space, that's like, half of the sport. And so for me as a basketball player, I've been able to take from that and add it to my game.
Hey, Tyler, obviously, we all know about you that cover this, that are immersed in it. But mainstream, it doesn't really happen unless you're in the NCAA tournament,
Yeah, right.
And obviously that's the goal of Belmont and every other school. What would it mean to you to help lead this team out of the Valley to the tournament, to be on that stage, to hit that three that could potentially be a game-winning three in that first round of the NCAA tournament, to have that upset, that double-digit seed, maybe that upset, a 12-5 and all that, is a memory maker for life?
I mean, it would mean the world, and that's a lot of the reason why I stayed. We've got the team to do it. And like I said earlier, Belmont took a risk on me, and I mean, genuinely, it would give me no greater joy than to do that with this team and hope, make a run in the tournament and give Belmont another pro. That's what I want to do. And, you look at Bennett Sturts last year, like nobody knew who he was before that year started. And then Drake goes on that run, and then in the tournament, he blows up, and now he's, a projected first round pick next year. And, now he's a household name, and Drake was a household name last year. And so that's what we all want to do at Belmont this year. And I mean, it would mean the world to me for that to happen.
How are you in those moments? Game on the line, 18,000, like, I mean, those kind of crazy moments. What is it about that you want? It's kind of relatively new for you in this last year that you want to be in that position.
Well, I think part of it, yeah, it is new for me because I haven't had it in so long. You go back to high school, that was the last time I played meaningful basketball. But I think that's what every player, I mean, if you really love the game, that's what every player wants. You want to be in those high pressure moments. You want the game on the line. You want to be in those big lights, big stages. You want to be the man in the arena. And I think you're playing the game for the wrong reasons if that's not what you want. And so, yeah, I think it's just priceless to be in those moments. And I think now, with the experience we've had last year, we went to Bradley last year with 8 guys healthy, and I played all 40 minutes, and we won on the road. That was a huge win, and that arena is pretty rocking. You go to Drake, we got our tail kicked there. Okay, now we know what that feels like. So I think we've got a really experienced group with a lot of guys that played last year, and I think as a group we're prepared for that kind of stage this year.
Well, Tyler, can't wait to see you knock down those threes and Belmont potentially make another run. I think one of the favorites in the Valley. Appreciate your time, and we look forward to checking out the season.
Yes, sir. Appreciate it.
Thanks for watching and listening, everyone. And as always, you can follow all our social media content at the Sideline with AK. Our content appears on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and of course, YouTube, TikTok, X, and Instagram. Check out all the content at the Sideline with AK.